George Soros was 14 years old when he learned the most important lesson of his life, and had nothing to do with money. It was 1944. Budapest. The Nazis had just occupied Hungary. His father, Tivadar, gathered the family and said something that George would never forget. He said, "The rules have changed. The old way of surviving no longer works. If we do not change how we think right now, we will not survive." Tivadar Soros did not wait. He did not hope. He obtained false identity papers for his family, split them into separate locations, and engineered their survival before the worst arrived. He did not optimize for the best possible outcome. He built a structure that would hold even in the worst possible outcome. Joe Soros never forgot that moment. Decades later, sitting at the head of one of the most successful investment funds in financial history, he would say that everything he knew about money, every rule, every principle, every decision, traced back to what his father taught him in Budapest in 1944. Survive first, then win. That is rule number 2, and we will get to it. But first, rule number 10. I am telling you about it now at the beginning, because most people never reach the end of a video like this. And rule number 10 is the one that will matter most to your life. Not your portfolio, your life. It is, time is the only asset that cannot be bought back. Soros did not become extraordinary because he had more capital than other people. He became extraordinary because he decided early, before anyone was paying attention, before there was any evidence it would pay off, to invest his time with the same discipline he later applied to billion-dollar trades. He read, he studied, he built frameworks nobody asked him to build. He spent years developing a way of seeing the world that most people around him dismissed as too abstract a matter. The money came later. The time investment came first. Every hour you spend waiting for the right moment to start is an hour you will never recover. Every year spent in a career that pays you but does not develop you is a year that has permanently closed. The richest people in the world did not start rich. They started with time, and they refused to waste it. Now, the other 9 rules. It's a question George Soros asked before every major financial decision he ever made. Not how much can I make? The question was, how much can I lose, and can I survive it? This was rule number 1, and it came directly from Budapest. Tivadar did not sit down and calculate the best possible scenario. He sat down and asked, if everything goes wrong, what does survival look like? He structured his family's situation so that even if one thing collapsed, the entire system would not collapse with it. Soros carried this exact logic into every trade he ever placed. Before he built his position against the British pound in 1992, a position that would make him over $1 billion in a single day, he did not start by calculating the upside. He started by identifying the exact point at which the trade would be wrong. He decided in advance what he would do if that point arrived. He knew his exit before he knew his entry. Most people do the opposite. They decide how much they want to make. They never decide how much they are willing to lose. And when the loss arrives, and it always arrives, they freeze. They hold. They hope. Hopping is not a strategy. It is the absence of one. Before any financial move you make, any investment, any career decision, any business bet, ask the survival question first. If this goes completely wrong, can you recover? If the answer is no, the position is too large. That is not a suggestion, that is the rule. Now consider 2 people, both 29 years old, both living in the same city, both earning roughly the same salary. Call them Thomas and William. Thomas looks at his $4,000 in savings and sees a number that feels safe where it is. He does not think about what it is doing. He does not think about what it could become. He sees a price, the current price of security, and he accepts it without question. William looks at his $4,000 and asks a different question. Not what is his worth right now, but what is his actually worth, and what would it be worth when the reality of compound growth catches up to it. This is rule number 2, never confuse price with value. In September 1992, the price of the British pound said stable. Governments were defending it. Central banks were supporting it. Every major financial outlet in Europe was describing it as secure. The value said something completely different. It said broken. Soros had done a calculation that almost nobody else had completed carefully enough. The pound had entered the European exchange rate mechanism at a rate that was fundamentally incompatible with the actual condition of the British economy. What was being displayed on trading screens across London was not a reflection of economic reality. It was a reflection of political will. And political will, Soros understood with total clarity, always breaks before economic gravity does. He bet $10 billion against the pound. He made over $1 billion before the day was over. The lesson is not about currencies. The lesson is this: every time you look at the price of a stock, of a house, of a job offer, of your own time, you are looking at what people believe something is worth in this moment, not what it is actually worth, not what it would be worth when reality finishes its calculation. Thomas spent 12 years in a career that paid him a stable salary. He accepted the price of that stability without ever questioning the value of what he was exchanging for it. By the time he was 41, he had a comfortable routine and almost nothing else. No transferable skills, no meaningful savings, no path that led anywhere different from where he already was. William spent those same 12 years building something the market would eventually need. He accepted less money in the short term in exchange for something with real long-term value. By 41, his income had grown 6 times over, not because the world was kind to him, because he refused, consistently and deliberately, to confuse the price of comfort with the value of growth. Rich people do not buy prices, they buy value, and they wait, sometimes for months, sometimes for years, for the gap between the two to close. Rule number 3, everyone around you is usually wrong. And that is not an insult, it is an opportunity. It's something most people never consider. When an idea becomes popular, when everyone in a room agrees that something is true, when a consensus forms, when the majority opinion solidifies into something that feels like common sense. That consensus is not evidence of accuracy, it is evidence of agreement. Those are two very different things. Soros spent his career exploiting the gap between them. Think about how a housing market works. People see prices rising. Rising prices make them feel confident. That confidence makes them buy. Their buying pushes prices higher. Higher prices attract more buyers who feel even more confident, and so on until the prices have no relationship whatsoever to the actual value of the houses being sold, and the entire structure collapses under its own weight. The people caught in the collapse were not stupid. They were following the consensus. They were doing what everyone around them was doing. They were trusting the price because the price felt safe, because everyone else trusted the price. Soros looked at moments like that and saw the mechanism clearly. He understood that markets move in self-reinforcing loops. Confidence drives prices. Prices drive confidence until the loop breaks. And the break, when it comes, is always violent, always faster than anyone expects, and always profitable for the person who positioned themselves for it in advance. You do not need to trade currencies or housing markets to apply this rule. The next time everyone in your industry agrees that a certain skill is not worth developing, or that a certain opportunity is too obvious to matter, or that a certain path is too crowded to enter, stop. Ask what the crowd is missing. The gap between what everyone believes and what is actually true is where every significant opportunity in your lifetime would be found. And here is the part most people never hear. The crowd is not wrong because it is unintelligent. The crowd is wrong because it is human. Because human beings take cues from each other. Because safety in numbers feels real, even when the numbers are moving in the wrong direction. Understanding this does not make you superior to the crowd. It makes you able to see it clearly enough to make different decisions. Rule number 4, size your bets like your life depends on it. Not your confidence level, not your certainty, not how strongly you feel about the idea. Your position size must reflect one specific thing: the asymmetry between what you can make and what you can lose. Nothing else. Thomas and William again. Same $5,000, same opportunity. Both of them right about the direction the investment will move. Thomas puts $4,500 in, 90% of everything he has. William puts $500 in, 10%. The investment climbs 40%, then drops 60%, before recovering fully 6 months later. At the bottom, Thomas's account has been destroyed. He sells in panic. He never recovers because he has nothing left to compound. William's account is uncomfortable for several months, then it recovers, then it grows. He made the correct call on the direction, and he survived long enough to be rewarded for being correct. Both of them were right. Only one of them made money. Position sizing is the rule that separates people who build wealth from people who almost build wealth. Soros understood this not as abstract theory, but as lived reality. He had watched extraordinarily talented people with correct theses lose everything on single positions because they were not structured to survive the temporary move against them. Being right is not enough. You must be built to survive being right on a timeline you cannot control. Rule number 5. Change your mind faster than everyone else. At some point in the 1980s, Soros held a large position that was working. The thesis behind it was solid. The numbers confirmed it. His team supported it. There was no obvious reason to exit. Then one data point shifted, a small indicator, a number that to most observers looked completely insignificant in the context of everything else that was working. Soros closed the position that same day. His team was confused. The trade was profitable. The thesis had not been disproven. The exit made no visible sense. His explanation was brief. I am only rich because I know when I am wrong. He did not wait for official confirmation. He did not wait for the market to punish him into action. He saw the first signal that reality might be diverging from his model, and he moved before the cost of being wrong had time to compound. Stop for a moment and think about how rare this actually is. Most people hold losing positions not because they believe in them, but because selling means admitting the decision was wrong. And admitting you are wrong feels like losing, so they hold and they wait, and the position gets worse, and the admission becomes more expensive, and still they hold, because now the loss is so large that accepting it feels unbearable. Soros never let it get that far. Not because he had no ego, he had considerable ego, but because he had built a rule that operated before ego had a chance to interfere. The most adaptive people in every field are not the most stubborn, they are the most willing to opt it. They hold their convictions with full commitment right up until the moment new information suggests those convictions need revising. And then they revise without delay, without drama, and without looking back. Rule number 6, wealth is built in the silence. The summer of 1992. Soros is quietly, systematically building his position against the British pound, week after week. He does not mention it at conferences. He does not publish his thesis. He does not hint at it in interviews. He does not discuss it with anyone outside his immediate team. By the time the financial press connected the dots and understood what was happening, it was already over. Soros had won before the story was written, but here is the part that almost nobody talks about. What made the silence possible was not discipline for its own sake. It was an understanding of how windows work. The period between when you see an opportunity and when everyone else sees it is the only period in which that opportunity can generate extraordinary returns. The moment it becomes visible to the majority, the moment it appears in articles, in conversations, in the consensus, it is already too late to extract the full value from it. This applies far beyond trading. The person who spends 3 years quietly developing a skill that the market will urgently need, who posts nothing about the process, who announces nothing, who simply builds, will outperform the person who documents every step publicly and receives encouragement instead of results. Encouragement feels good, results compound. They are not the same thing. Build in the silence. Let the outcome speak when it is finished. Rule number 7. Use other people's mistakes as your education. In 1998, long-term capital management, known as LTCM, collapsed in a way that nearly triggered a global financial crisis. LTCM was not a group of reckless gamblers. It was assembled from the most sophisticated financial minds available. Nobel Prize-winning economists, former Federal Reserve officials. Mathematical models built with a level of complexity that most institutions could not even audit, let alone replicate. Their track record had made them legends. Their confidence was, by any reasonable measure, justified. And then they lost $4.6 billion in 4 months. Soros watched closely. He did not gloat. He did not dismiss them as arrogant, though many others did. He asked the precise question, what did they know that still did not save them? The answer was clarifying. LTCM understood mathematics better than almost anyone alive. What the mathematics could not account for was human behavior under extreme stress. Their models assumed that financial markets behave according to stable, predictable distributions. Real markets have moments, rare, sudden, catastrophic moments, where human beings collectively panic in ways that no equation anticipates and no model survives. The model was not wrong because it was built poorly. The model was wrong because it assumed that the inputs would remain within a range that history had seen before. When the inputs went outside that range, the model became useless precisely when it was needed most. Soros had understood this instinctively for decades. Watching LTCM confirmed it analytically. He adjusted his own risk frameworks accordingly, long before the next crisis made those adjustments necessary. Most people learn from their own mistakes. Wealthy people learn from other people's mistakes. It is faster. It is cheaper. It does not require you to personally experience the disaster to extract the full lesson from it. Every financial collapse in history is available to you as a case study at no cost. The question is whether you treat it as a story about other people or as a curriculum designed specifically for you. Rule number 8, the first loss is the cheapest loss. When a trade moved against Soros beyond a specific threshold, he exited. Not eventually, not after one more review of the thesis, not after consulting the team again. He exited. This is psychologically difficult because closing a losing position makes the loss real and permanent. As long as you have not sold, the loss exists only on a screen. Selling transforms it into a fact. But here's what Soros understood, and what most people spend years refusing to fully accept. The loss was already real the moment the position moved against you. The number on the screen and the number in reality are the same number. The only difference is that the screen version allows you to maintain the illusion of a recovery that may never arrive, while the actual position continues to deteriorate, and while your capital and your attention remain trapped in something that is no longer serving you. The first loss is the cheapest loss. Every additional day you hold a position that is not working costs you twice, once in capital that is sitting in the wrong place, and once in attention that could be identifying the next opportunity instead of defending the last mistake. Cut it. Move forward. The next right decision is always more valuable than the last wrong one. Rule number 9. Build systems, not streaks. Soros was wrong. Publicly, expensively, visibly wrong. Multiple times across his career, he lost hundreds of millions of dollars on technology stocks in 1999. He made large calls that did not work. He had entire years where the quantum fund underperformed. And yet, decade after decade, the long-term results kept compounding. The reason was not that he found a way to stop being wrong. The reason was that he had built a system designed to survive being wrong. There is a critical difference between a streak and a system. A streak is a sequence of correct individual decisions. A system is a structure that produces correct decisions often enough and limits the damage of incorrect decisions sufficiently that the long-term result remains positive regardless of what happens in any single week or month or year. Most people build streaks. They find an approach that works and repeat it without understanding why it works until conditions shift and it stops working. And they have nothing beneath it to fall back on because they never understood the principle, only the tactic. The wealthy people build systems. They identify the logic beneath what works. They encode that logic into habits and rules and structures that operate independently of any individual decision. They create architecture that produces results even when specific choices are wrong. Your financial life is not a series of isolated decisions. It is a system. Either you designed it with intention or it assembled itself by default. And systems that assemble themselves by default almost always produce the same outcome, a life that looks like the statistical average of the people immediately around you. Soros was not the average of anyone around him. He built his system deliberately, Before the results arrived, before there was evidence it would work, before anyone was paying attention to whether it was working. He designed the architecture first. The results followed. You can do the same thing. Not with $10 billion, not with a team of analysts or decades of experience. With whatever you have right now, today in the life you're actually living. The rules do not change based on the size of your account. The survival question is the same whether you have $500 or $5 million. The difference between price and value is the same whether you are evaluating a stock or choosing how to spend the next 10 years. The system you build today, the habits, the rules, the frameworks you decide to live by would determine the results you see a decade from now, regardless of where you are starting. George Soros started with almost nothing. He started in a city and an occupation carrying a name that was not his own, watching his father make decisions under conditions that most people cannot imagine and would not survive. He carried those decisions forward into a world that eventually rewarded them beyond anything either of them could have anticipated. 10 rules, not 10 secrets, not 10 shortcuts, 10 ways of seeing the world, that once you genuinely understand them, you cannot unsee. The question has never been whether these rules work. They have been tested across 5 decades and billions of dollars and some of the most volatile markets in modern financial history. The question is only one thing. What are you going to do with them now that you know them? If this video gave you something worth keeping, subscribe. There is a new video every single week. And the next one may be the one that changes the number in your account.